The Row 8 highway extension in Perth's southern suburbs has been the cause of conversation amongst environmental activists in WA since its initial suggestion in 2009. The proposal by Main Roads Western Australia was to extend Row Highway by approximately 5 kilometres from its current terminus in Kwinana Freeway in Jandakot to Stock Road in Coolbellup as part of the Perth Freight Link project. An EIA was conducted as it was realised that the project posed a significant environmental impact which would cause detriment to the Swan Coastal Plain bioregion and in particular the Belia wetlands, as the highway was intended to run directly through this region. Proposed management and mitigation procedures for such impacts were addressed, and the EPA suggested that every effort should be made to avoid the loss of ecological values in these areas. This aside, controversy sparked amongst protesters, organisations and local governments as construction began and no environmental approval was issued. The EPA noted that initial approvals were administered based on less specific design details compared to what they were later provided with by the proponent, who considered that the proposal was provided using best practice studies, avoidance of potential impacts and mitigation measures. The degree to which best practice principles were adhered to by the proponent and the EPA was analysed through critical evaluation of the proposal's engagement of environmental offsets against two best practice criteria, including management in perpetuity and practicality.
Currently, there is a lack of empirical evidence to suggest that conservation goals are being achieved in the long term through the implementation of offsets. This may be due to a wide range of factors, including limited monitoring, limited reporting of projects that fail to deliver, and a lack of standardised criteria for evaluation. In addition, the relatively recent popularity of offsetting means that their performance in the long term is not yet apparent. In order for offsets to adequately compensate for residual environmental impacts, which may take decades, legal management and protection in perpetuity is necessary and therefore is considered an element of best practice. Due to public controversy and a changing government, Row 8 was eventually dropped, meaning that the degree to which this best practice criterion would have been followed can only be predicted. While offsets were a major component of the proposal, there was no mention in any documentation submitted by the proponent during the EIA process that directly addressed the expected lifespan of the offsets. Therefore, the possibility for perpetual management or protection of the proposed offsets were either not considered or not acknowledged as an important component of offsetting for this project. Further, the EPA also did not address the longevity of offsets in their report of the proposal, only mandating the implementation as a condition for approval, as well as requiring the proponent to begin implementation within 5 years of the release of the ministerial statement. While not directly relevant to the offset strategy for Row 8, Main Roads did propose to clear land that made up part of an offset site developed for the Row Highway Stage 7 extension, which indicates that there is little protection for offset sites after implementation. Considering these factors, the proposal did not adhere to best practice criterion of protection and management in perpetuity. This is in line with the principles explored in the EPA's offset policies and guidelines, which did not provide clear information or regulations regarding offset lifespans, and thus the EPA itself also does not meet this best practice criterion.
Looking at the environmental impact assessment for the Row 8 extension in regards to the parameters of practicality, you must also address practicality in two parts. The first part primarily is problem solving, whether the outputs aid in it. Firstly, you must look at the mitigation hierarchy. So the mitigation hierarchy addresses the avoidance. So in the Row 8 extension, the initial purpose of avoidance was using degraded vegetation instead of the denser vegetated areas for the road mat, and then in minimisation of the medium strips. This is then followed up by an offset prior to the admittance of the damages of hectares of parts of the wetland, as well as Carnaby cockatoo habitat, to achieve no net loss. Where this fails is in achieving achieving environmental acceptability was rather difficult for the CI as admitted by the EPA. In terms of the impacts are rather significant, as well as rehabilitation of an endangered species is rather difficult. Secondly, looking at the proponent implementation, you need a robust body of planning, technology, research, and financial backing. This is a government project, so the financial backing was not the issue. However, looking into the research and technology, it claims to have the most innovative technology in road development as well as construction that WA has ever seen. However, it fell short in the fact that the EPA, as criticised by the state government, the EPA provided guidelines rather than laws for prior management plans. The other difficulties were specific to the offset in terms of land acquisition. So negotiation with landowners can be quite difficult, and it doesn't address that fact in any regards.
In summary, Railway Highway Extension Project in Perth, Australia has caused various controversies amongst the public and government despite legislations and guidelines in place to guide and ensure environment impacts are considered. The EPA has failed to comply with these criteria as discovered through critical evaluation of this project proposal using best practice of offset through management of perpetuity and practicality. Management of longevity of the offsets were not addressed, indicating that prolonged protection and perpetuity of these offsets for the environment were not considered. In terms of practicality, minimization and monitoring efforts are addressed, but its downfall is that Row 8 has very significant impacts to the environment, causing offsets to be irrelevant and not applicable. Practicality is possible through implementation and consideration of issues raised in consultations and implementation of environment impact minimization plans. However, a downside of practicality is that it cannot be done without intensive research, prolonged planning, and financial banking, and therefore, Row A is a difficult project to become environmentally acceptable given its various effects. For these reasons, it is fair to say that the EPA in its assessment for the Row A project did not meet the best practices set out in policies and guidelines.